Hey everyone, my name's Jade and I'm a third-year PhD sociology student, and this video is about Gillette's commercial about toxic masculinity. Recently, Gillette published a commercial that encourages men to be their best by combating internalized misogyny and unlearning notions of toxic masculinity, particularly with the goal of promoting the rights and dignity of women. The message behind the commercial is great. It exhorts men to be accountable for the ways in which they're complicit in the marginalization of women, and recognizes that it's just as much of a man's responsibility to promote gender equality that it is a woman's responsibility. Obviously, I don't agree with the backlash online that the commercial is attacking or shaming men. All the commercial is doing is asking men to be accountable for their actions. Similarly, this commercial is not akin to a commercial that tells women how bad they are and how they can be better. For one, there are already commercials like this, and they're called Every Commercial Everywhere. Second, product ads telling women that they should be prettier or slimmer or what have you is not the same as the Gillette commercial. What would be the same is a commercial targeted at white women telling them to address their internalized misogyny, or a commercial that calls out cis women for their transphobia. Like the Gillette commercial, these hypothetical advertisements urge people to check their privilege. This is in contrast to most of the actual advertisements targeted at women, which basically just tell them that they're inherently bad and need their product to be better. There's therefore a pretty big difference between the Gillette ad and advertisements that are typically targeted at women. That all being said, I do have some criticisms of the Gillette commercial. Gillette is doing something similar to what Dove did a few years back when they employed women of various sizes to be in their advertisements. The company is using feminism to sell their product without actually engaging in acts that function to the benefit of women and other marginalized groups. Yes, they have promised to donate $1 million every year for the next 3 years to nonprofits designed to help men become better role models for young boys. But for a multi-billion-dollar company like Gillette, this is basically nothing. Also, why not donate to nonprofits that try to help, survivors of sexual assault or homeless women and LGBT people? Basically, those who are most negatively affected by patriarchy. It kind of just seems like Gillette wants the props of being called a feminist organization without actually engaging in feminism. This leads me to my biggest critique of the ad, which is it's basically the good guy of commercials. So we've all heard of the idea of the good guy. It's basically that guy who's sweet and nice and deserves to be celebrated for being sweet and nice. I struggled with this concept for a really long time, and it wasn't until I read feminist Vivek Shraya's book, I'm Afraid of Men, where she talks about the idea of the good guy, that I realized why. The following passage sums up her argument pretty well. Sexist comments, intimidation, groping, violating boundaries, and aggression are seen as merely typical behaviors for men. But typical is dangerously interchangeable with acceptable. If we want masculinity to be different, we must confront and tackle the baseline instead of longing for exceptions. Loving your mother, holding a door open for a woman, being a good listener, or even being a feminist doesn't make a man an exception. Experiencing oppression, including racism, homophobia, and transphobia, doesn't make a man an exception. If we are invested in perpetuating and glorifying the myth of the good man, we are also complicit in overlooking, if not permitting, the reprehensible behavior of the typical man. So with this in mind, I basically think that the Gillette commercial is the good guy of commercials because it's getting celebrated by feminist-leaning communities for saying the exact same thing that women and feminists have been saying for decades now. Similarly, they're not actually doing very much to improve the material conditions of women and other marginalized people. By celebrating Gillette for doing the bare minimum of feminist action, we are perpetuating and glorifying the myth of the good man, as Vivek puts it, in the form of a commercial. The only reason this advertisement is impressive is because it stands in contrast to the typical ad, which promotes misogyny and patriarchal beliefs. The assumption is that the standard for men is so low that an advertisement like Gillette's is amazing simply because it doesn't feed into this standard. But if we celebrate Gillette for doing something that women and other activist groups have been doing for a really long time now and to a much larger scale, we're supporting the idea that men or companies who are just basically decent are exceptional, and that men and companies that promote sexism and violence against women and other oppressed folks are just normal. The problem with this, as Vivek points out, is that when something is considered to be normal, it becomes okay. So that's my video on the Gillette commercial. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see similar videos, please subscribe to my channel. See you later!